So hi everyone, we're at Ellie's house today and Ellie wanted to show me, or I wanted to show you all, her experiences with her composts in her garden. Now she's got this area beside this shed, and just pan up to the shed there, and it's got some big holes up in the roof there, you can see, where the water drains straight out of there onto this part of the garden. And she put a couple of pots in here and had a complete disaster with them, and we're not sure why, so we're going to have a look. And she's moved the pots since, but what she's done is she's emptied the contents from the pot back into the soil. So we've had quite a lot of rain last night, and you can see here she's got the grass clippings on top, which I always say are great, but you can see how that water hasn't quite penetrated through that grass clippings, and that can be both a good thing and a bad thing. So there should be lots of decomposed food under here because she dumped everything into the soil. So let's just see what we've got. Well, it's pretty much all gone if there was something in here. Yeah. Let's have a look. What do you reckon, Ellie?
Yeah.
So you had those pots here and there's nothing there really, is there?
Yeah.
It's gone, hasn't it? So when did you do that?
That's only a week. There must be some somewhere.
No. It's incredible how fast it is. And once it starts that decomposition process, but you can see how clayey that is. It's really full on. So there's really poor drainage here where that's not draining. And there are ways you can break up the clay. If you're going to do that with a compost, what you need to do is dig the hole, put the compost in there, and then put cheap potting mix around it. So you're putting in some soil that's not really dense, like clay's dense. And that way, and then you need to add worms to that, and then they will start to help break up the clay as they move out. But this isn't a bad result when you think that you put food in there, and we thought there was going to be food under here, and there's literally nothing left there, is there?
Yeah.
It's all turned to...
And there's a worm. There's a little wormy in there.
Well, there you go. So see that if that's nice and moist, they can move through it. If it's too dense, they can't, as I've proved on a number of occasions, but if it's nice and broken up like that, they can move through it, and they quite like that moist clay and soil. So even though you thought it wasn't working, if you'd probably just left it a bit longer, it probably would have just sorted itself out. But it doesn't matter because you put all that good nutrients into the soil, and it's all broken down and it's all helping that soil. But you've got a big drainage problem there anyway, so that's a big issue to try. You'd never really fix that unless you dug that hole up and put in lots of drainage. And I personally wouldn't worry about it. I'd try and just plant plants here that liked really, really wet soil. And they'll soak up a lot of those nutrients in as well too. But, you know, you can't really say there's anything wrong with that at all, can you? It's all good. And you were worried about the ants, and you thought the ants were digging in down here. Let's have a look. You see there's nothing there really at all. But you can see how they're mingling. I think ants actually are a good thing sometimes in soil because they'll break up soil as well. And there's nothing bad there at all, is there? So if they were ants, they're certainly not there now. And I would think that personally was too wet for ants to survive in. I don't think they like it that moist. But I'm no expert. Oh, look, there's a little worm there. Is it? There he is. Oh, and there's a little ant. Is that an ant? But, you know, you'd hardly call that infested with ants. So it's not too bad, really. And maybe what you need to do is say, you might be able to put some zeolite in there to help soak up the moisture. But that's a big expense. I wouldn't worry about it. If it was me, I'd be trying to put plants in there that like really, really moist areas. And that way then you're not having to spend a lot of money to try and fix up the soil. But you could still go and put another pot in there and, as I say, add all that moist grass clippings around it and add the worms into that. But you've got worms in there already, you wouldn't have to. They would start breaking up anyway. I think you just need to be a bit more patient with that particular one. So it's going to work differently to the other ones, and I think that's the only difference. So you could easily put another two there if you want to improve that soil, but You know, you've got nice, healthy looking plants there, so it's not like there aren't nutrients in the soil.
Mm.
Did you fertilise any of this at all?
Yep.
No. And were these plants here when you...
Yep.
Yeah. So they're doing all right. They obviously like that moist soil. So
Yeah.
maybe put that type of plant there where it doesn't matter that it's getting that downpour of that water.
Yeah, and not good drainage.
Yeah. But we'll go and have a look at Ellie's other pots now because she's moved them to another spot and they've set up another garden and we'll see how that's going. So we just found a soldier fly in Ellie's garden and she thought they all died in that other spot over where the clay is, but perhaps they like this section here better. You can also see that, see there's another little fly there?
Mm.
Now if you get house flies buzzing around these, you haven't got them covered properly.
Oh, okay.
So you want to just make sure they're nicely covered so that they don't hang around, but they can't really lay eggs on that anyway. They need to lay their eggs on the food, so it doesn't matter, but I just don't like them around. But the soldier flies is what you want to attract, and once you know they're there like that, then you could easily cover that up so that those holes aren't exposed. And let's have a look in there now, because I reckon that maybe you might have some soldier flies in there, so let's just see. Clear that away a little bit. Oh wow, when did you put that in there? A week ago you said?
Yeah, a week.
Look at that, it's all gone. And, oh, it's not quite all gone, let's dig down the bottom and have a look. But that's pretty amazing in a week. Ah, look, you have got soldier flies, look.
Woo!
Fantastic. Look at the size of them in a week. And they would have started off really small too. See, like that little tiny one there? Oh, you can't really see it. So there you go.
That's a pork bone.
Is it? Yeah. And you know what else I've discovered that they're nicely attracted to? And there's an ant in there, but it's not infested with ants. And you've got no, what do you call it, maggots in there. If you had maggots in there, and it wouldn't matter if you had maggots in there because they can't really get out, but my thought is you don't want to be breeding maggots. So that's why I don't like, if you see houseflies buzzing around, that's why I like to cover it to keep the flies away, even though they can't get in. I just don't think that's a nice look in your garden. But the soldier flies you definitely want, and that's awesome. I brought some with me today, but it looks like I mightn't even need them. So let's have a look down further. But that's pretty fast in a week for it to get like that. And I should add, everyone, that Ellie's parents helped to set up this garden, and they put a whole bunch of horse poo around here from their horses, so it's good horse poo, nice organic horse poo, and that may well be full of a lot of microbes that have helped all this composition process along. But
Yeah, well, when we put the food in at the start, we put some horse poo in there too, just to...
Oh, okay, well that would have definitely, yeah, all the bacteria from the horse poo would have helped it along for sure.
Yeah, and we were hoping that there'd be a whole lot of worms in the horse poo, because we keep it in a big pile and they're usually full of worms.
There probably is, but when you're filling your pots up with all your kitchen waste, the worms won't actually come into it until the food's ready to eat. And also the soldier flies will crowd them out, but the food's really acidy at that point, and that's not good for the worms. That's why they're better in the surrounding soil. Once that acid disappears and you just say let your pot sit for a month, then the worms will move in. But if you just want to know how much worms are in these pots, just fill one of them up with just worm-friendly food. So that little bucket, can you pass me that bucket you've got there? So this is Ellie's little pot she keeps on a sink. This is perfect. I use a plastic bucket, and I've got to tell you, metal's probably better because you can probably get the smell out of it if it ever gets stinky. So this is a great little bucket. And so they've been using this. So if you've got everything in here, maybe just get a couple of things and put them in an ice cream container for a week, and put that in just worm-friendly food and put that in one of the pots. And within a month, that'll be chock-a-block with worms. So you'll know then whether you've got lots of worms in here or not. And that's a really good way to breed up worms as well. So once you know you've got the worms there, take them out, put them in the surrounding soil, and then start filling your pots up with everything again. And you know your worms are there, and they're going to be getting all the remnants that are coming out of the pots, and they'll be spreading that around the garden. And when they're not in the pot and they're in the surrounding soil, they'll actually move around the soil more. If they're in the pot, they're going to stay there because that's where the food is. They won't move as much. So this way, by putting all your kitchen waste in there, the worms will live in the surrounding soil, and they'll only come into that pot then when that food's ready for them to eat. So even at this point, that might not be ready for the worms to take over. That might need to decompose even further before they'll move in and do their work. So you might actually never see them in there, but they'll be in the surrounding soil doing their work in the surrounding soil. So will we have a look at those other pots before we fill all these up?
Yeah.
And these are pretty close together. Is there, like, I normally wouldn't put them this close together. Was that just for ease of,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Since we had to build it all up with poo because it's too hard to dig down into this soil, closer was better.
But look, that's amazing. That's in a week.
Oh,
Now,
look, yeah,
now
another
you've
soldier
got
fly.
some interesting, you have got ants in here. I don't get ants in mine. So that might have something to do with the horse poo. Don't know, but I never get ants in mine. I've had one instant recently with a few ants in it, but within a week they were all gone. They were all, 2 weeks there were nothing left. They'd just moved on. So I don't worry about the ants, but you've certainly got, these look like little green ants, which is really interesting. I reckon the horse poo must have something to do with that. But it doesn't matter. Look, that's good. And, at that point, I'd just keep topping it up. The only time I really empty these, when they get to a point where I really can't get anything else in them, and then they need a good clean out. And then I'd scoop that out and mix it in with the soil, or, put it somewhere else. Like I'd dig up around here and then mix it in deep. But you don't really have to do that. As long as you keep topping it up, it should just keep disappearing. So we have a look at that third one and see what it's doing, and then we can decide where you want to put this waste. Now, see, that one's not as... Isn't it interesting? 3 pots and 3 different results. So this one's not quite as decomposed, but maybe this one isn't as old.
But they're all the same.
All the same, yeah?
Yeah, put the same stuff into all of them.
It's amazing how they're all different, but that's a good... It's good to see the difference, what they do. And so that's going through a different process with all the bacteria. There might be no soldier flies in this one. Get off the little bug. I can't see any in there, but that doesn't mean they won't come. That just means that this is at a different decomposition level. And see that housefly, that's when they lay their larvae on there, but they can't get in. So this is just at a different decomposition level. If it was me and this was in my garden, I wouldn't even worry about it. I'd just keep topping it up and let it look after itself, and eventually those soldier flies will come in there. But if you want to add some soldier flies like the ones I bought today, you can do that if you want. Or, yeah? Okay? All right. So we'll leave that there because that needs a bit more, if I'm digging into what I do is just this, clean my tool. And it doesn't hurt to put a bit of grass in there. It doesn't really matter. I just don't fill it up because you don't want to, waste that good space with grass clippings or whatever in your pot. So let's get my little.
Isn't that interesting? How
I mean, that close, and there's soldier flies in one and not in the other. And we had the same thing at your mum's house actually. She had a couple of pots that were really close, and one of them was actually chock-a-block with soldier flies, and the other one had nothing in it. But eventually they got in there, so it's just a matter of time. Now, I was going to say too, the other thing I found, if you don't eat meat, I worked out that you can put fermented wheat in there, and that will attract the soldier flies too. They love that. So I grow wheat for the trade shows at home. When I do the lids, like I put the lids up and I fill it with the soil and I put the wheat on top. But if you get the wheat and soak the wheat in water for a couple of days so it starts to ferment, and then put that in the pot, it will attract the soldier flies. They seem to love it. Look.
woohoo! Look at
See
that.
that? And that's just the fermented wheat. Amazing, hey?
Yeah, wow. They love it.
But it's pretty awesome looking at them, isn't it? Like, you got to learn to love your bugs in this system.
Yeah, well, they're like pets.
Yeah, exactly. You become addicted to watching them, actually. Do you want some of those in that other one?
Yeah, maybe.
Why not? Spread it around. Now, you've got some in that one, so do you want some in there too? Put some in. Why not? Yeah. So, and then, see how I put them in on top? Well, I don't worry about any of that. I don't worry about drowning them. We'll put a little bit of everything in here, hey? only because I'm here doing this, but otherwise I wouldn't be putting my hands in this. I'd just be dumping it straight in. I don't want to wreck your garden here. And you can see, everyone, how easy this is. You don't need to chop everything up. Just toss it in. I'll put some of those in there. And there's some nice mandarin in there. Lots of good greeblies. Normally I'd just dump it straight in. Now that would have fitted in one of those quite easily if I'd bothered. Because once it all compacts down, and we'll just have, do you want to give that a rinse, Ellie? And if you do that, just come and dump the water in one of them as well. So there we go. And we'll just cover that up again. And those soldier flies are now, look at all that beautiful horse poo. My dirty hands. You can see I'm not too, actually I don't know why I'm being fussy about clearing that away, but I'm not too fussy. And do you want to wash the top of that, Ellie, since I've made a mess?
Which one?
Do you want to wash the top of that, or are you fussy at all?
No, it's fine.
And then you see, you can't see that, which is nice. And the heat from that breaking down will help break down that sugarcane mulch as well. And then that goodness all goes into the soil as well.
So I had them not too covered just because I really wanted the soldier flies to be able to find it.
Yep.
They'll still be able to find it when it's all covered like this?
Sometimes I've had it covered with, 3 inches of grass clippings and they've still found it. So it just depends. When you're starting them off, it's a good idea to leave it uncovered for a while to get the soldier flies into the area.
Yep.
But now they're there because we just saw one. And sometimes that can take them a while to smell it. So in that instance, leave a couple of holes open until you know you've got them in there. And then I don't worry about it after that.
Yep.
Because once they know that food's in that area, they just keep coming back. Yep. And over winter, we're coming into winter now, they could quite easily hibernate in there over winter if it gets too cold.
Yep.
But if it stays nice and moist, sorry, not nice and moist, if it stays nice and warm, they'll actually stay active in there over winter. And none of those smelt at all, did they?
No, I was really surprised with the pork.
Yeah,
Sorry.
you'd expect that to stink, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
No smell.
Mm.
Did you smell anything?
No, nothing.
No, that's good. Perfect. Thanks for watching.